right, let's see if we can get this working then. We're just waiting for the software to start kicking in. And as soon as you can see me, I want to see a big thumbs up. And yes, there we go. It seems like we might be up and running. Guys, if you can hear me, please let me know. Just say that we can hear and see you. In that case, I know that everything is all right. It seems like there is loads of people here. I'm so happy to see you all here, guys. Before I start with anything else, I want to say a very, very happy Easter to all of you. I hope that you're all safe, that you're all sound out there, and that you are hopefully able to spend some time together with your families and the loved ones, which is really, really important in days like this. So let's see. I'm just going to make sure that I can actually see myself properly here, because I have some. I have some cool stuff planned up for this one. I was told on Twitter today actually that, Petter, can you not do something a little bit more fun? Like, it would be great if you could spice things up a little bit. So, I mean, obviously, I'm listening to what you guys are saying. So, I have some plans. I have at least one guest. Hopefully, we can get more guests in as this goes on. And he's going to come in a very, very few minutes, because he's getting ready out in the green room right now. But first of all, I want to start with answering some of the super chat questions. As always, guys, there's just so many questions coming up in the normal chat. Right now, we're about 600 people here already. So I will be trying to take some questions from the normal chat. I always try to do that. But if you have something that's really, really important that you really want to ask me, then use the super chat function. All right, that's the little $sign. It means that you are providing a little bit of money to the channel and the work that I do. And I will be answering all of my super chat questions. If that takes me an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, I'll be sitting here until I've answered all of your questions, because this is kind of what I do. I'm still locked up here in Girona. We are coming into week 4 or 5 or something right now. You know, days stop mattering after a little while. But, you know, this is what I do now. I sit. During the weekends, I try to stay off social media a little bit. I try to spend a little bit more time with the family and stuff. But from Sunday evening to Friday evening, I think about new videos that you might be interested in seeing. I look at graphics. I plan for live streams. I plan for ways to help out with the Airline Pilot Club, which I hope that you've all checked out. Have you gone and checked out the airlinepilotclub.com? If you guys are here because you want to become airline pilots and you're wondering whether or not this industry is actually going to survive, well, that's the place you need to go to right now, because me and my co-founder, Andy O'Shea, we are working hard on finding good answers for you at the moment, talking to industry leaders, talking to airlines, talking to flight schools, and see what's going on. How can we help? Is there any courses that we can create? Maybe the flight schools want to come with some free stuff for you guys, maybe some webinars and stuff. All of that we managed to get out is going to be at theairlinepilotclub.com, theairlinepilotclub.com. So go there and put yourself into the emailing list. So when we start, when new stuff comes up, like we're starting an English language course, for example, this week, then you guys will be the first to know. So go there and check it out. Okay, before we get my first guest in here, I want to talk. I see Daniel Wiese has been really active on the super chat already. He has asked 3 questions, which I'm going to try to answer before we get kicking with guests. So, on the 737, are the control surfaces mechanically connected to the yoke? What about the trim? If so, is this true for all Boeing and Airbus models? On the 737, yes. The 737 has mechanical connections, has actual wires that goes from the yoke out to each of the control surfaces. And that is also true for the trim. There is a physical trim wire that goes all the way back to the trim. But the 737 is the last model that did this, all right? The subsequent models, they're all fly-by-wire, which means that there's no physical connections between the flight controls and the yoke. The earlier birds, yeah, they do that, which our next guest probably can tell you more about, because he really knows his old birds, all right? But yeah, so newer planes do not have it. Older planes do. The 737 has it. I have flown what we call manual reversion, which is when you have to fly without hydraulics, only with the physical connections, and it is tough. it is very, very hard. It's pretty much the only thing, apart from maybe a runway stabilizer, where you need some physical strength to fly this aircraft. But you can help out. Like, both of you can act kind of as servos to each other. So I can sit through the controls and I can feel as my first officer trying to do something, I can kind of lend a little bit of muscle power to him in order to make it a little bit easier. Or you can switch so that pilot flying switches forth and back as you run out of muscle strength. But it is hard work, definitely. All right, so that's the first super chat question from Daniel. The other one is, if you move to the US, do all your licenses and qualifications transfer, or do you have to redo some? Love the channel. You don't transfer them automatically. You have to go to a flight school. You need to do a validation of your licenses, which means that it is very possible that you're going to be able to transfer some of it. Most of it, you're going to have to do a skill test to verify for the competent authority, in this case the FAA, to make sure that that you know your stuff, basically. And in some cases, you might also have to redo some theoretical exams, which is not great. But it's all going to depend on what kind of previous experience that you have, and so on. So basically, before you do something like this, just get in contact with a flight school, an ATO, and tell them that you're intending to do this, and ask them to put together a training plan, and also ask them how much it will cost you to do that transfer. And they will know. I mean, a lot of people are doing this, so they will know what we're talking about. And the last from Daniel here. If you wanted to switch from passengers to flying cargo, is there extra training, assuming you fly a 737? Do they use 737s for cargo only? Yes, there are 737s that are done for cargo only. No, there are no specific licenses for that. It's the same type of, I mean, you're sitting in the front and you're flying. It doesn't really matter if you have cargo or passengers in the back. There is going to be company-specific courses for stuff that you might have to do. But most of the time you have a load master that takes care of the actual loading and make sure everything's sound. And then maybe there is going to be some courses for you to go out to make sure that the cargo is properly kind of arrested, that it's fixed in the way that it should be, things like that. But generally, no. Generally, that's kind of all that you're going to need to do. Okay, guys, if you can hold the super chat questions for just 1 second, I'm going to answer these ones that I've left here, and then I am going to go for my first guest, and then you can keep going with the super chat questions, and you can, both ask me and him as we go. So, Shade Echo had a super chat that was retracted for some reason, and Wes Burson is asking, why does the 77 speed tape start at 45 knots? It's a great question. I don't know why they've chosen 45 knots. I'm guessing that below that is going to be so arbitrary, the speed, that they've just chosen a speed of 45 knots. We don't use it below 45 knots. And the control surfaces become aerodynamically efficient around 60 knots. So I'm guessing that probably has something to do with that. But we use our ground speed indicator when we're taxiing. So we never look at our indicated airspeed as we're taxiing. It's only really when we're going to fly, and below 45 knots, the 737 doesn't do anything really. So I don't know exactly what the reasoning was when they designed it like that, but I'm guessing it's going to be something like that. Paul Pontano, thank you for your support. Sant Ranger sent you a FR24 screenshot through an app feedback. I thought the 777F was cruising over Eindhoven at an unusual altitude of flight level 310. Is it really unusual? No. Flight level 310 is low. I don't know why they were cruising that altitude. They could be extremely heavy, it hasn't just taken off, or there might be just an intermediate cruise level, or it might be to avoid slot times. Sometimes that happens. But now, if you saw it right now, I don't think that it has anything to do with slot times, because there is no one else flying. So that would be highly unusual. I don't know exactly why they did that, but I'm sure that it has some kind of operational reason for it. And I did not see the screenshot, unfortunately. Kalle Rudolf Moinalainen, thank you for your support. Liana Napalkova, hello, could you please explain a bit more how Airlines OCC collaborates with ground handlers during turnaround, particularly in ACDM airports? Oh, ACDM, I don't recognize that shortened, but how we cooperate with ground handlers. So Generally speaking, when we go to any airport, really, the company will have an assigned dispatcher. That's the head of ground handling, the one that's going to be the one that's doing all of the liaison with the rest of the ground handling team. So when we pull up to the gate, we will have either dedicated, trained company ground handling teams that takes care of fueling, that takes care of baggage handling, or it's going to be generic teams that works at that airport that does all of the airlines. No matter what, they are going to be trained in how this airline, how my airline wants to do things. And the first thing that I will do and my cabin crew will do is try to get a hold of dispatcher, which normally just waits for the aircraft. Dispatcher will come on, they will liaise with the cabin crew, they will talk about how many passengers are expected on the outbound flight, if there's any specials, as in any wheelchair passengers that needs to be moved on, any specials when it comes to cargo, when it comes to catering, or any special requests or anything going on. Then they will come into us, they will ask us generally how much fuel that we want so that they can relay that down to the fueling unit. And most of these things, they've started already. We don't need to tell the ground handlers to start unloading the baggage, for example. They will do that automatically. The same with loading. But the interaction about what we want, if there's any specials, or if there's anything that they want, that will go through the dispatcher, right? And then when it comes to actually going, if there's any delays or so, we will be talking with the dispatcher once again. We will decide on why there was a delay, what the exact block off time is, so that we record both of us the same time. The aircraft normally as well will be recording automatically the off block time. So the aircraft will actually feel when we start moving, and it's going to send that off, and it's going to be verified, so that if we are saying one time, the dispatcher is saying another, and the aircraft can then agree with one of us, so to say. And also we can't be cheating like 10 minutes on the off block time just to say that we were on time when we actually weren't. So there's things like that going on. And then we will be, if there is a delay, we will be ticking down what the delay reason is. And the dispatcher will be ticking down what they think the delay reason is. And normally that's one of the things that we also agree on to make sure that there's no disagreement there. I don't know if that's what you were after. If there's any more specific questions, then you can go into the Mentour Aviation app and ask me directly there, or just go to submit feedback and ask a question there, and I will try to answer it as much as I can. Okay, so Shade Echo, do you miss flying? Yeah, of course. Like I'm right now. Today was the first day when I feel like I need to come up with some kind of plan here. I started thinking about how I could potentially use my son's simulator to maybe just kind of review scan flows and things like that, and working on maybe creating a course from mentorpilot.com where I can share it with you guys. If I'm going to start doing sim stuff, then maybe I can do some cool stuff for you guys as well. But yeah, I do miss flying, and thank you. It's great to have you all here, and I'm so happy that you guys are enjoying what I'm doing on the channel. I hope that you like the videos that I've been putting out lately. I want you to come with feedback. Like, is there something that you want me to do more videos about? Maybe you want me to do more industry analysis. Go dig into something specific in these very, very troubling times that we're in right now. Or maybe you want me to do more technical videos or something like that. That's, by the way, you see here, yeah, there we go, Patreon. Yeah. My Patreon crew has grown a lot since this crisis began, and it's so heartwarming to see that people are choosing to come in and help out and to sponsor the channel and to take part in my Patreon crew. Because one thing that I really want to try to do is I want to get more patrons so that I can do kind of what Steve in FlightChops is doing, which he basically only has patrons. That's how he runs his channel. And that means that he can go out, and I would be able to go out and do maybe a very technical video on something like, a flap problem, or the hydraulic A system, or the hydraulic system in the 737. Something that if I would do that on the channel right now, there would be a very, very small, limited amount of people, pretty much you guys who are here right now, and a few other people that would want to see it. But the other people, the nervous flyers out there, they might not want to see it. But if I had a bigger Patreon crew, it means that I wouldn't have to try to work up, my sponsors, for example. I wouldn't have to produce these videos that goes out to hundreds of thousands of people. It become less interesting, really. So I could go more to satisfy you guys, which are my core audience. So if you are part of my Patreon crew right now, thank you very much for the support that you are giving the channel. And it's really heartwarming to see how much bigger the Patreon community has become since the start of this crisis. So thank you very much. So more questions here. Let's see here. I just want... If you can hold the super chat question for just 1 second, so I can get my guest in, then we can get going. But I want to answer the super chat questions here before. So Jan Kutoj is saying, just stay safe, both you and your family. I work as a tourist guide. I'm also stuck at home for almost 5 weeks, and it started to be really difficult. Jan, I do feel with you. We are in the exact same boat, because you guys are working with the tourism industry. So am I. So are all of the people that are working in the hospitality business, in the hotel business. We are going to have to really stick together and help each other when it comes to this. I just hope that we can get rid of this virus so that we can start helping, so that we can start doing something. My wife was in contact with one of her friends. She's really down and cannot hardly pay the rent at the moment. So I said, help her out, because we have to. There's going to be instances now, guys, coming up where you will see people that you will need to help. And if you have the possibility, if you still have your job, a good salary and income, and it feels safe and secure, consider helping people out, guys, because you are going to see stuff that we probably haven't seen in our lifetime. Things that we haven't, in our very spoiled generation, haven't seen, which is poverty. And people really, really struggling to pay the most basic things. And before we can get this back on the heel, we're going to have to try to help each other out. So that's something that I wanted to say, and I hope that you guys agree with me on that as well. Nice on Lee, love your channel. How are you keeping yourself fresh while you're grounded? At the moment, I'm not. I keep myself fresh because obviously this channel is very aviation related. I hardly do anything else than think about aviation, find out stuff about aviation. If you have the Mentour Aviation app, you know that we are pushing out loads and loads of news. I have contracted people in mentorpilot.com who are working with producing news articles. So I am very much immersed in the industry. However, to try to keep actually current, I need to sit down and I need to take my iPad out and I need to basically go through manuals. I have to start reading manuals. I have to review procedures. I have to review technical systems. It's the only way that I can keep myself current for long term, right? So that's what I'm going to try to do this week, actually, since I'm already a little bit ahead on videos. There will be a new cool video coming out on Wednesday, by the way, so stay tuned for that. And let's see. Cool. So I'm way behind here on Super Chats. Let's see. Hello, sir. Have you done any flying all since the start of the crisis? Do you feel like you need more training, or are you confident to go back? I have not done any kind of flying. I was scheduled, because of the deal that we're on here in Girona, to be on 2 months of completely unpaid leave to start with, right? And that was March and April, and we're still in there. So from when this started, I have not been flying anything. Now, do I feel confident? Yes. I would never put myself in an aircraft by the controls without feeling confident in what I'm doing. So far, I have 18 years of experience behind me. I can get back in. I will take 10 minutes extra in the setup to kind of just get my bearings. But once I'm back, I'm going to be back, right? But soon I'm going to go outside of my 90 days. And once I've gone outside of my 90 days, I will not be allowed to fly. So I'm going to have to go into a simulator and do 3 takeoffs and landings to legally be allowed to fly. And of course, if I do that, then I'm going to be well back up, kind of oiled up again. So that's the answer to that. I do feel quite confident to come back. Any memorable hard landings you've had as a pilot? Many, right? Most of them I haven't been doing though. But as a line trainer, sometimes when cadets are coming in and they're learning how to fly, you have to let them go quite far. And if you're just 1 millisecond too late with taking over or kind of pulling back on the controls, if they're coming in and about to do a hard landing, if you're too late on that, well, then you don't have time to save it, and it becomes a hard landing. And of course, you need maintenance to come by. And I've had that. I've had them have to fly in maintenance with Learjet to check the aircraft out after a hard landing. It was just outside. You never know though. We don't have any indication of when there's a hard landing or not. So if we suspect that it's a hard landing, we have to call maintenance. But normally you feel it. You know that that was too much. That was over the 2.1 Gs that we're allowed to take. And I've had quite a few of those. I mean, training for 15 years, that's what you get. Joseph Charles, hello Petter. Happy Easter to you from the States. I enjoyed your video yesterday with Juan. Entertaining and informative. I really love doing those kind of interactive videos with other YouTubers. Like, it's so cool. And I mean, talking to Juan from the Blanco Lirio channel, it's, for an av geek like myself, it is a pleasure, because the dude has been doing everything when it comes to aviation, and he's been flying for so long, and he's been flying in the military, he's been flying fast jets, he's been flying heavy like military freighters, he's been doing basically any type that you can think about in commercial aviation. So to sit and kind of jab aviation questions and things with him, it is amazing. It is just so cool to do that. So I'm glad that you enjoyed it. And guys, if you missed it, it's still on my channel. You just have to go and check out the latest live videos that I did. It's together with Juan from Blanco Lirio, and he is a swell dude, like really cool. So we had a good long talk to him. And let's see. So we've got Happy Eastern here from Multiplanet Interactivist, Joshua McCloskey. Mentor, how does luggage sorting operate for checked baggage at big hubs like Amsterdam and so on? I mean, that is a huge machine. I haven't actually been into one of these big ones, but it is, you know, all of the cintas, all of the what are called, the conveyor belts, obviously have different destinations, so they will be initially moved by basically robots to different belts, and they will go out, and then there will be some manual handling as well. But to be honest, I'm not the person you should ask about that, because I have been working as a baggage handler. I actually have, but only on smaller airports, and which were really easy. Then they just came on one cinta, you looked at it, and you put them kind of in the pile for the aircraft that was going to be loaded, and that was it. But the bigger ones, it's like a factory. Like, it is a huge operation, and it has to work, because otherwise you can imagine when you have places like Barcelona where there's basically 40-50 different gates, and they all have to be loaded at pretty much the same time. Have you flown using the joystick like an Airbus uses? Imagine that would take some getting used to. I have never flown an aircraft with a joystick except for the Diamond DA-42, which is a smaller two-engine aircraft, but it didn't have a side stick. It has like a middle stick like this. So I've never tried a stick like that. Grant Rennie, thank you very much. Tune in dropouts. Oh, thank you for your generous support. How far away are pilotless planes? Will the airline start looking in that direction to alleviate furloughs? They're far away. I've done actually 2 videos on that, which you can check out. I did one about half a year ago, and I would say that even though the technology is probably very close to here, to actually see them actually being implemented properly, it's probably a good 25 years away. And with the current crisis and the MAX debacle, it might be 30 years away. So my generation is not in that, I don't feel really worried about it before I go into retirement. Next generation probably doesn't need to be very worried as well. But like my kids, if they were, well, they're kind of in the next generation, they might be starting to see it coming in. It's going to probably come in on the cargo side first, and then we will see what happens. But it is it's not just technology, it is implementation as well, and it's rules, and it needs to work with both human and non-human flights then in a very complex airspace, and we don't have the technology, and it's going to cost billions to build it out. Scott Laurie, thank you. Scott, great to have you here. Hi, Petter. On the nav screen, you have a green line with the letter R and a 3 number. What does this mean? On the nav, with the 3 green line with the letter R. I don't like off the top of my head, I don't know which one you're referring to. Like, you know me, you're one of my patrons, so just send it to me on Skype, and I'll explain it to you later on, Scott. Grant Rennie, thank you. Stay safe and well, everybody, from Grant Rennie as well. And Balai Sharat Kumar. Last Wednesday asked Boeing or Airbus, what will you choose? At the moment, I am a Boeing guy. I do like the Boeing philosophy. So I think I'm going to stop with that for a while still. But thank you for asking. CJ Hollister, hi Mentor. Wouldn't it be great time during the slowdown in air traffic for ATC centers to upgrade facilities to more modern system? How likely are we to see some improvements on the ATC side? They are continuously working on that, but since they don't know how long this is going to take or when they're going to open up, it's unlikely that they're going to start some kind of major overhaul during this crisis. But yeah, I agree. This is the time to kind of start looking into potential overhaul and do it if possible. And guys, while that is the last super chat question, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start calling up our first guest here and see if Mikey is available. I was supposed to call him like 10 minutes ago, so I don't know if he's even around. Let's see.
Hello.
Mikey!
Are we live?
You are live. We're not doing any green room here. I'm just going to throw you to the charts immediately. How are you doing?
Doing good. How's everything? Actually, I know how everything is because we just talked on my live stream only a few minutes ago.
This is awesome. So, guys, for those who doesn't know Mikey, he has a YouTube channel called PlaneSavers, where he does everything that you can imagine awesomeness when it comes to old warbirds. And, like, what are you working on right now, for example? I saw...
Well, right now, because the situation is a little bit difficult, but right now, a Fokker DR1, and so that's the Red Baron triplane, and of course, none of them survived World War II. There was actually 2 left, and they got destroyed in the Allied bombings. So this was a replica that was built in the mid-90s, in fact, 1995 in Canada, and actually crashed at an air show in New York in 2011. And the museum had it, and they were going to rebuild it, but then they figured it'd be cheaper to buy a new one. So they're basically going to get rid of this aircraft. So that's when I came in and said, hey, well, I'll take it, and we'll rebuild it and see how that goes, because the season before we saved a DC-3, a D-Day DC-3, and that seems to be a little bit easier with aluminum, but wood is a whole nother mix, man. I didn't know anything about wood, but dealing with wood from a logistical standpoint is crazy.
But how do you like that? So you basically you take in any aircraft that you find that you are interested in, and you restore it, kind of non-depending on what status is in. And how? I mean, you obviously, so you don't have any experience on working on wood planes, but you still take it on, like.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was very naive. I thought, hey, this, aluminum is, high and mighty and stuff like that. But no, wood is. I have so much respect for wood, because it is just this living organism that you have to deal with when you're building. In fact, finding it, because the wood comes from Finland, the Sitka spruce, and you can't just go to Home Depot and get it.
No,
it takes months to get it.
I know, it's crazy, and that's something that you don't realize when it comes to working with wood in aviation industry, because something that happened to us. So we had an aircraft that had a tail strike on landing, like a 737 that had a tail strike on landing. All right. Now that's very rare. Normally the tail strikes, when you come in, you do them during takeoff for whatever reason, and you have that little shock absorber in the back that's supposed to take the brunt of the forces, right? But when you get a tail strike on landing, sometimes it doesn't strike there; it strikes further forward or further back, which means that the damage to the aircraft becomes much, much worse. As in, it was very close to a complete write-off, the aircraft. There was no passenger damage, like there was no one hurt, nothing like that. But the damage was so bad that they were considering writing it off. But instead, they took it into the shop, right? And they had this team of engineers that was working non-stop for 3 months to fix that thing. And one thing that they had to do, talking about wood, is that they had to, by the maintenance manual, put oak tree beams through the windows to hold the thing up as they were rebuilding the sponge around. All right, and this is the crazy thing. So you would think that they could put something, anything, through those windows in order to hold it up. But no, it was supposed to be like Canadian oak beams of a very specific kind, and this is on a 737. We're not talking a Fokker here, and so they had to ship those beams over because they had to be exactly that type of tree as well. It wasn't any tree that was good enough. So that's when I start realizing, like, this is a serious business when it comes to the correct materials to be used as well.
Oh yeah, no, and talking about tail strikes, I don't know if some of your viewers are probably a lot of Europeans, but I was in Marseille, France, in 2004, and we bought 4 CL-215s from Sécurité Civile, and that's a very long story while we were there, but we basically were. Some museums got them, and then we got them, and we were operating CL-215s at the time, and so we were stripping them. We weren't allowed to fly them out. We had to cut them up.
Right.
So, and part of the thing too is like anything you can think of, like stuff that unbolts. But because the CL-215, I'll use this little Jenga piece here as a thing. The back is kind of like a square, just like this Jenga piece. And sometimes they do have tail strikes or they hit something in the water, and then there's the back part. So we actually just took like cutters and cut the whole back of the 215s off, and just like a like with shears, just in case if there's any tail strike, all the fittings and measurements and everything, like even if you don't use a piece of it, to have the actual thing to be done. So anytime I see a 215, I look at the tail and see if they have a repair there, see if anybody's knocked the tail off.
Yeah. I like you guys. I have the utmost respect for what you guys do. I mean, I see that on my chat here as well. People are saying, "Oh, Mikey and his team they're incredible," and like kudos for what you guys are doing. So you were like, because I'm not sure. I have a lot of European viewers, and I'm not sure that they're all following your channel. So you're known from TV as well. You guys had a TV show which was called
Ice Pilots NWT. Yeah, we ran for 6 seasons, and it's a little complicated because it is a Canadian TV show based with History Channel, which was the main channel. But once it went overseas, it was everywhere. So like, I think it was Discovery Channel in the UK. There was like Vista in Russia. And just like amazing. The one thing I always got emails from random places in Europe where they would like ask me, like in the Ukraine, they would be like, "Oh, when is the episode coming on tonight?" And I'm like, I have no clue.
Yeah,
like I just like, have this database.
I did that 2 years ago. Like,
yeah. Cool. And that's the beauty of YouTube and shows like that is that aviation, especially our type of aviation, is almost timeless because we're not operating, trying to get the most fuel efficient airplane possible, because the routes and how like your style of aviation, it's all about getting the margins down and everything like that, or keeping the margins up by keeping the overhead down. Well, we're trying to actually get the freight there. So like we operate like World War II aircraft, DC-3s, C-46s, the DC-4s, which we retired and replaced with the modern Electras, the Lockheed Electras. And so it's more of a challenge of finding a way to get the job done no matter the cost, if that kind of makes sense, because there's the competition is really physical. You're not worried about your competing airline as much as can the job get actually done. So that's why this is some strange Jurassic Park version of aviation where, modern airplanes and World War II stuff can coexist.
But that's the awesome part. The fact that you guys don't have to, because the day that you have 3 other airlines doing the same thing, it's just going to be less awesome. Everything is going to come down to what we have, which is like, can we shave off 0.5% of fuel burn in order to carry 2 passengers less if we take away the aft toilet? That's the kind of discussions that are being held on my side of things. Well, you can restore a DC-3 just because you can actually go into a gravel field somewhere up in the Jinx and get the packages there. What kind of things do you guys transport most of the time?
It's mostly food, because you can imagine what keeps everything going is the fact that there's no roads. So everything that would normally go on a road, from Amazon packages to kiddie pools and like, all everything, your big screen TVs to your mattresses to your bikes to your Bowflex. I don't know why there's a lot of Bowflexes people ship around. I don't know if that's his workout machines, but it's just like anything that needs to go in has to go in an airplane. So the cargo door is really the limited factor of the whole thing. So like with modern aircraft, it's all about fuel burn, seating capacity, and turnaround times and pilot training. We're limited to, can it physically fit in the airplane? That's the number one question I get.
But pilot training, let's say that I want to come and work for you. How do you do you have line training captains, for example, that teaches people how to fly a DC-3 that now has turboprop engines on it?
Yeah, so the training is all hands-on training. There is no sims for any of this stuff.
Obviously.
So everything has to be on the job. So you start off on the job training, like you show up and then you just kind of thrown to the wolves or the tigers, which is the new big thing now. And so you just go out there and you work you work with the airplanes, loading it, cleaning it, fueling it, oiling it, and all that stuff. And you kind of, through osmosis, if you could, make it through that tough part, because, it's also minus 40 degrees Celsius out, you start learning about the airplane, and then it's your turn. So you're kind of well versed in how everything works, because it's a weird thing, because you could be the best pilot in the world and you could be flying that airplane better than anybody, but if you can't make sure that it's going to start in the morning because it has to be plugged in and tented and loaded and all that stuff and just taken care of, it's so much more. And that's why there's only a very few amount of pilots that can do it. When you look at 100 pilots, you're maybe looking at 3 or 4.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I have literally had people turning up for OCC courses to come in and fly in my airline that have been, struggling with the fact that no one is coming and carrying their pilot bags for them, So I'm guessing that you come up there. This is a whole different world of things that doesn't have anything to do with flying, but has everything to do with common sense and tenacity and stuff. But it sounds awesome. And being Swedish,
and the beautiful thing of it is that it is the more earlier, like the more earlier on in your career, the better you are. You don't have the bad habits of what the airlines do and stuff like that. Is like the expectations of a young pilot is they want to fly and they'll do anything to fly, just like the military. So you can train them and they can fly, and then all the hard stuff becomes basically second nature. But if you were to take, say, a pilot with like, say, even 2,500 hours and put him in that scenario, it rarely works unless they have a lot of general aviation experience.
Yeah.
But the airline stuff doesn't go back. But then there's also the firefighting. So we also do firefighting too, which is kind of this weird, kind of almost like an airline killer, I would say, because there's people that is like really want to fly like Air Canada, WestJet here in Canada, and then they try firefighting, which is that whole new dimension of everything. And then it's just like, it's almost like a drug. They're stuck. They're stuck in it. So
I spoke to Juan in Blanco Lirio. We had a live stream together last week, and he was talking about the people who were flying the firefighting tankers down in Cali, and he was referring to them as pilot bums. I think he was referring to them like that was a completely different type of life, and that you had it or you didn't. Either you were able to do what they were doing and survive, or you didn't. And I would like, the pilot in me would really love to try it. Like, I would do anything to get my hands on flying a DC-3, that you guys have sorted out. But the human in me sees what it would take to be trying to crank that thing up in minus 40 degrees in order to fly a kiddie pool out in the bush somewhere. Like I do see where the problem comes in. Now, do you have a favorite? Do you have, out of the planes that you guys have restored, which is your favorite one?
Well, the restored one's definitely the DC-3 GTD. In fact, here's a model that what it looked like when we what we found it in Montreal. It sat for 27 years. It's a D-Day machine, and we got it going. So that would be definitely my favorite. But my favorite overall is definitely the Curtiss C-46, which, if you don't know, it's basically a big pregnant-looking DC-3. And we fly it. It's flying right now. There's probably more, there's two C-46s flying. I don't know how many Airbus A380s are out flying, but yeah, it's out there flying right now, moving cargo. And who would have thought that aircraft just turned 80 years old? The DC-3 is 85 years old, and they're still out there giving her. And yeah, that's just.
See, I love that because I get questions. There's a few questions that I get quite often, which I'm gonna run another one by you. But one thing that I get a lot on these live streams is like, is it safe to go on a 737 that is like 30 years old? I checked on Flight Radar and I saw that it was like registered in the 1990s. Is that okay to fly with? And your face always pops up in my head when I think about that. It's like, yeah,
it is because it's still there. Like, if it wasn't, it would, like, if you're a mathematician, you'd be like, oh yeah, that airplane is had a few rolls of the dice and it's still here. It's pretty good. But the flip side of that is, and I know there's a lot of European tourists that come here to see the 737-200, which is still thriving up here.
Yeah,
and it's so. I don't know if your viewers can guess why that the 737-200 is still thriving. We'll leave that maybe as a question in the chat, but it has nothing to do with money because it is a very expensive airplane to operate compared to, say, the more modern 300 or 400. But let's see if anybody in the chat knows why.
Yeah, let's see if anyone can come up with why do they still use the 737-200s up there? Why is that well suited in order to do this? And let's see what we can come up with. Another question that I get a lot, obviously, is that, am I too old to become a pilot when I'm 25 years old and 30 years old and stuff? What's the average age of the pilot that you guys are using?
It's the mix. Like the older guys are, in their 60s, and the younger guys are in their 20s. And so the median age doesn't mean anything because the median age, it says, I guess you're, 40, but there's really no 40 years old here. Well, there's a few, but yeah, you're either on one end of the spectrum and the other. It's I can kind of picture it like I know you guys like we love hockey up here, and then football over in Europe. It's just like it's a young person's sport, and so the young people do all the work, and then the older people are the coaches, and it's just kind of like that same dynamic where the airlines are a lot more equal. Like you can have pretty much everybody.
Yeah.
And it's just the whole gambit where bush flying is usually super young and then the veteran guys. So it's kind of a neat little dynamic.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that's what I'm trying to tell people as well. That there's kind of a role for anyone, and what I always want to tell guys is that if you start when you're 25 or 30 or 35, providing that you personally can actually take it with your personal circumstances, yes, there will be jobs for you. Like they will be able to find it. Now it's a very special time. We'll talk about that more later. But don't worry about your age. Now I am getting a few answers here. Now one thing that is very common in these questions in these answers are the 737-200 can be fitted with a gravel kit.
Yeah, that's the main reason, and because the lift. So if you're looking at, say, a 30,000-pound aircraft, which is the Lockheed Electra and the 737-200, if you need to move that amount, that's the most efficient. Then you get up to the Hercules aircraft, which are around the 40,000 pounds. But there's no Hercs left in Canada. They're all at Linden Air Freight in Alaska for commercial Hercs. Now, there's a whole big thing about military Hercs, and I did a full video just on that because it's, we can't use military airplanes in, civilian use, but you could before with DC-3s. It's a long story, but I bet you viewers know why. But yeah, so the apex predators for cargo up here are 737 and the Electra. The 737's got a slight edge, but the Electra is got the edge because it is cheaper. So it's kind of a mix. But you if they can't fit in those airplanes, they're not going to fly.
Yeah.
So you basically have to put on a barge, and the barge comes once a year. So you can imagine that. So you have to do all your beer orders, you're ordering your truck or your car or anything that's large, like a wood order, like say if you want to rebuild your deck.
Yeah.
you're going to have to, plan for that one barge coming in once a year, because the rest of the year it's all froze over. So it's a different way of life for sure.
I'd buy myself one of those with the sewing kits that can actually make your own wood, because there's no, like, I'm guessing that wood is not something that you guys have too little from.
Yeah, because we're about 200 kilometers from the tree line right now, so our trees are, can fit in this room. Like, they're not very big right here.
Oh, really?
So, and then of course north of the tree line there's nothing. So like, like that's why you see building materials are igloos and animal skin, because that is what you have. So I'm not making up. It's like they still, like, I worked with the Canadian Rangers, which is like the on the land military, and they still train how to build igloos and how to build runways for Twin Otters and that kind of stuff, like real practical stuff, which is really, really cool.
We do that up in northern Sweden as well. We have a special branch of the Swedish military that does only that. Fjälljägare. And we have Americans coming in to do their special training together with these guys, because if it goes to, like, if you're going to have warfare in those kind of conditions, these guys are the best, and they will be able to skin a bear in order to survive. Like that is the kind of things that they will learn. So yeah, it's very cool. Let's see. So I see there's some super chat questions here as well. I have some that I'm going to talk about later, which has to do with retiring of 767, 757. And then, let's see. Yeah. 737 can run on skis. I don't think so.
No, I wouldn't put it past it. But the gravel kit does look like skis, believe it or not. So if you look at it, on the nose wheel, it looks like it actually has a ski. And then in front of the engines, there's a pneumatic system that blows all the air and rocks away from the engine in this intakes. And so it kind of does look like a ski, but man, I bet you the military put skis on it somewhere. They always do crazy stuff. Did you see there's the de Havilland Buffalo, where they put like a big balloon underneath of it to land on land on water and stuff, like crazy stuff. So I would never put it past the military.
No, but the 200 is a fantastic aircraft. Like we had I think 10 or 12 of them in our fleet when I started back 18 years ago. They've been phased out of obvious reason, mainly noise, I think, to be honest. But like the pilots that were flying those, they said that it was like flying sports car. It is the best handling 737 that you can come across, because it's the way that it was supposed to be. It was when Boeing was designing aircraft and, properly for handling, and it wasn't meant to be stretched or anything like that. It is the size that it was supposed to be, and the engines, the direct response you get from the engines and everything. They say, like, anyone who's flown that aircraft loves that aircraft, and of course, like the noise from the engines could probably tear the paint off the roof of the house. Like, it's crazy.
Oh yeah, they're ultra low pass engines. They basically look like a straw out there on the engine.
Oh yeah, they're just one step from turbulence.
The cockpit looks like a DC-4 cockpit. Like, it is all like steam gauges and everything. Like, at least the ones that I've been in.
Yeah,
but
I flew on one of those because I went straight onto the 800. But half of my cadet group, they went onto the 200, and I went onto the 800 straight. Which I kind of miss a little bit. I would have loved to fly the 200, but I remember jump seating back home to Sweden, and we had the 200. That was a route for the 200. So I was sitting up in the cockpit together with the guys and trying to kind of like following, because once you've gotten used to the glass cockpit, it takes a while to get back to the steam gauges. And I was sitting there trying to, like, you see the RMIs and stuff pointing, and you're going to do a London departure, which is really tight. There's aircraft everywhere. And the guys were just sitting there like, you know how you drive a big Chevy? And frequently just looking back like, I see this. Like, completely relaxed. And at some point, one of them took up one of these, like, those chocolate balls that you can buy. What are they called now? Not Skittles. Anyway, there's like chocolate balls that are very, very light, and you get them in big bags. And he took one of those out, and then he put the Gasper outlet, and he kind of adjusted it a little bit, and he hung that little chocolate thing in the air. So it was just sitting there. This is while he was flying out of London TMA, by the way. So he was like, "Do you want to see something cool?" And I was just thinking there, I wonder how long these guys have been sitting trying to get stuff to fly above that gas outlet in order for them to actually find something that did it.
Oh yeah.
That's crazy.
The one thing going back to the 737 on skis, which I see a little people in the chat saying, is that I learned never to say never when it comes to aviation related stuff, because especially when you're on YouTube, and you know this, if you say something and you're definite, you're gonna get a million emails. Yeah. I made the mistake of one time saying this is as crazy as putting a cargo door in a B-17, and holy smokes, because I never thought anyone would do that. They did, and sure enough, everybody and their dog was sending me emails about this B-17 with cargo doors on it, and so that's why I never deal with absolutes anymore.
No, but that's also how you learn. Like I've noticed that you do say something that you think that this can never, like this is a definite, but there will be someone who knows differently, and you will learn from it. So I mean, it's a learning curve. Cool.
That is a good point. That's a good point.
Let's see. Let's see if they have any questions here. There's people who loves the fact that we're doing collaborations, and like I was saying to you earlier, we were talking. For those of you who didn't see Mikey's live stream before, we were talking about what is starting to change now with the ongoing crisis, and there's a lot of people at home. And Mikey asked me whether or not I've seen something that's changed, and these kind of things, like having your YouTube colleagues coming in and doing collaborations over Skype and stuff. That didn't happen. It happened, but it didn't happen that much before. But I love doing this. Like it is so cool to be able to talk to like-minded people from all over the world.
Oh yeah, and you're a creator, so you know how much time and effort it takes to make 1 hour of content. Yeah. And it's just like it's a lot of time and effort. And so now live streams, you can not only get an hour worth of content, sometimes more, is that you get this definite interaction with people. So people can feel a part of something because they are. Yeah. Like it's not the illusion of, oh, hey, we're hanging out. No, you're legitimately hanging out with us in the chat and then live stream. Like that's to me is the coolest thing.
I know. And it's so fantastic to have a medium like this. Where you can actually do that, and you can, like I was saying before as well, that you can start to recognize some of the faces from the chat. For example, there's people that's been on your live stream a lot. You kind of know them by name, and you know that they have relevant questions and stuff. And now, for example, people are helping me saying that it's a box of Maltesers you're talking about. That's the candy. So yeah, indeed, it is Maltesers that I'm referring to. Let's see. Never say never is what people are teaching us right now. B-17 had a cargo door on the side from the SAW 63, just so you know.
So yeah, the 17 had a door.
Yeah.
And every airplane has a door, but they actually built B-17s with a cargo door, which is insane because it's so like if you're being in a B-17, like I almost got stuck in it because it's so thin in there. Yeah. And but you never know. They actually used them for cargo. Like after the war.
Of course. I mean, that's the thing. If you have something, you use it. Mike, I'm going to have to come up to you guys and visit at some point. You realize that, yeah?
Oh, yeah. No, it's for sure. It's lonely up here. It's lonely when things were normal. So, so come up anytime.
I can imagine. But I am used to the to the north of Sweden, which is not as north as you guys are and not as remote as you guys are, but still I do know how it's like to go for several hundred kilometers without seeing a house. that is something I have seen.
And hockey being the number one thing to talk about too.
Yeah, I mean we're still we're our hockey team in Örnsköldsvik, the ones that produced the players that I've been talking to you about before, Peter Forsberg and Niklas Sundström and Marcus Näslund. They dropped from the highest league in Sweden, and they've been down for I think 3 years now, which is it's almost hard to speak about hockey anymore because Örnsköldsvik is the heart of hockey in Sweden. That's what it's called. And the fact that we dropped one down from the highest league is just no, we don't want to. I don't want to even discuss it. You know? So people definitely think that I should go and visit you guys, and I would love to do that. Anyway, I don't know. You've been doing live now for an hour and a half, so I'm going to let you go. Do you have any?
I'm tired.
Yeah, I can. What time is it for you guys?
It's only 3:00. So you guys are? Geez, it's getting pretty late for you, eh? 9?
No, it's almost 11.
Oh, bedtime. Oh my lordy.
Well, that's the thing with this ongoing crisis now, that time has kind of stopped having a real meaning. I just go to bed when I feel like it. Yesterday that was 2:00 in the morning. Today it might be something similar, and you sleep as long as you like. The kids sleep as long as they like, because why not? What else are they going to do? We're stuck inside. So it's a little bit sad, but on the other hand, it's kind of nice to let the body decide when it wants to sleep and when it wants to wake up as well. Like it's.
Oh yeah, it's. Well, and it's even the north where the light cycle changes so crazy too. So yeah, we're just finally getting light here now. So even now, I look outside and it's bright at 9:00, and I still think it's like 2:00 in the afternoon, because that's how the light was 2 months ago.
I know.
So yeah, it's
that
crazy.
takes a while. That takes a while to get used to, I have to say. Anyway, Mikey, thank you very much, guys. If you haven't already checked out PlaneSavers, his YouTube channel is amazing, especially if you like old warbirds and rebuilding fantastic old aircraft. Are you guys? Is it going to be any more seasons of ice pilots?
Yeah. Well, ice pilots. That's a long story, but yeah, if you come check out my channel, YouTube / Mikey McBrien, where I do all the PlaneSavers stuff. Check it out, and yeah. There's a million things that are happening. There's the airline. There's the restoration projects. There's everything in between, to all the fun little adventures, and getting to chat with you too. So live streams, and geez, it's like a bazaar of content over there.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mikey. I'm gonna jump over to the full screen here. Take care of yourself, and I'm sure we'll be in touch in the coming weeks. Anyway.
Au revoir and stay safe.
Au revoir. Stay safe, my friend. Bye bye. Yeah, so there we go. That was my first guest. I don't know if we're going to get any more guests. I saw that FlightChops was here in the chat. I don't know if he's still around. FlightChops, Steve, if you're here, just write something in the normal chat here. If you want to jump in, then we can do something. Because another thing that I wanted to talk about, guys, was what we could do now, as we're kind of sitting on the ground when we're not flying. Maybe you're a flight student out there. You need to keep yourself current. And actually, at the moment, there are some quite awesome simulators out there. And I know that Mikey and Steve was talking about that on his live stream earlier on today. But I would like to do that as well. And I know that FlightChops has an absolutely awesome setup for his flight training, like he's doing at home. So if you're still here, right? Steve, do you mind if I call you up? Just to give me a thumbs up if that's okay. In that case, I will put you up for as our next guest here. Like, guys, you have to realize that I am very new to this shop, getting people in and controlling things. So this might not work, but we'll see. Providing Chops actually is up for it, obviously. So he's gonna have to give me a thumbs up in the chat. Meanwhile, I have some questions here. So I have been seeing a lot of talk on YouTube regarding retiring planes like 767, 757, and the Airbus 310 and 380. These planes retiring, but the 380 is still young. Have you heard about these rumors? Yes. Yeah. I mean, the 380, I've done a video on why the jet, like the big jumbos, are disappearing. I would like you to check that out, because I did that a year ago now, when there were starting to be talks about the 747 retiring, which is an old aircraft, or the 380 as well. And it has more to do with the type of aviation that we're doing, that we're not doing the kind of bespoke hub system where you feed into a large hub airport and then you go with huge airliners from that hub to another hub and then feed out. Right now you're seeing point-to-point airliners going instead, which has kind of doomed the 380. So even though it's a perfectly modern and functioning aircraft, you have to have so much people flying in it for it to be economical, that it has turned out to be, from a business perspective, not good enough. So that's what that is disappearing. But the 757 and the 767, they've kind of lived their life. You can't do much more with those airframes. You need to have more modern materials. You need to have better winglets. You need to have better engines. And if you're going to start replacing all of that, you might as well build a new aircraft, which is exactly what's happening. So we've had loads of super chats as well from Spirus, for example, because the 737-200 can run on skis. We had Mikey explain that. Same with Max Witt, which was talking about ground clearance and gravel runways, which is also true. And what if they made a combi Airbus 220-100 with the gravel kit? I mean, you can do anything, but the market needs to be big enough for it to be certified. And that's the issue. Like, you could probably get a 737-800. Well, maybe not. It's too little ground clearance. But you can do loads of things. But the fact is, every time that you need to change an aircraft, it's going to be a huge cost in order to do so. And it's most of the cases it's not worth it. And then Thomas is saying, do you think that pilot training will be cheaper? And we are going to talk about that. I am actually doing a new video together with the Airline Pilot Club, which was going to talk a little bit about that. I don't think that it's going to be cheaper, not in the foreseeable future anyway. But there's still going to be huge fluctuations in different prices. And now, without further ado, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call Steve from FlightChops up, because he said that he was actually into it. And what we're going to talk about is, we're going to talk about whatever we feel like talking about, really, because this is a live stream. And you guys were the ones that asked me to spice things up. So I'm just going to see if I can find him here in my very, very large kind of contact lists here. Let's see. I don't know why I don't have you here, Steve. There we go. Hope that he's up for this as well.
Yo.
Contact list.
You got me?
Yeah, I've got you. Just waiting for. Oh, there we go. Hey, Steve, how are things?
All right, cool. I'll mute the computer.
Yeah, let's see. I'm going to switch you over because it says Mike McBrien on you now. So now it just says awesome guest here, which is more like.
All right, cool. I'll be looking at the questions. So if you see my eyes go up and down, that's just because I'm looking at the monitor.
All right, cool. How are you doing?
Hanging in there. It's a little weird, trying to be constructive and get different things done that I was planning on getting done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a resourceful man, so I don't think that you'll get bored anytime soon.
Yeah, I'm lucky to be in a spot where I do have a lot of footage shot that I think other creators maybe don't have the same type of pipeline that I have. So I think some of them are more shoot, edit, publish pipeline.
Yeah.
Mine is shoot, edit, publish, shoot. So I have a lot of like backup shoots that are done that really probably could keep me going for a year if I had to without shooting anything new. So it's a good problem to have. It's been a problem for a long time to keep up with it.
Yeah.
So in some ways, this is kind of a opportunity to get caught up. But I mean, I had to cancel a lot of things. It was very painful. But I mean, there's more people that are in more pain than I am, so I shouldn't complain.
No, but still, it kind of sucks when you have a set plan for what you want to do. And I mean, I know that for those of you guys who are not following Steve and FlightChops, you really should, because when it comes to actual like production quality on YouTube for aviation, there is no one better than.
Well, I appreciate that. I kind of cheated though, because I came from the world of production as it was. That was my background. So brought that to YouTube. I'm a pilot, for fun and for the love of it, but filmmaking, you talk about it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert at something. I've logged my 10,000 hours as a filmmaker. I'm not an expert pilot by any means. I just do a lot of different types of flying, but I try to share that learning by making good films about it, or I get experts or other people that are really awesome instructors or just pilots that know a lot about a particular thing, and they teach me their thing, or I try to tell their story or see their airplane and then make as good a film as I can about that.
But this is interesting though, because like my kind of production journey that I go through is I obviously listen a lot to things like here on my live streams or from the Mentour Aviation app or from any kind of feedback that I get, and I get a sense for what people are asking. And then I create my content based on that. But in your case, how do you plan your content for the next, let's say, 2 months or something like that?
So I started the channel purely as a personal debrief, getting back recurrent in a 172, right? It just started as the GoPro was a very powerful tool to look back and review, to get better and fix things. And really it was just shared with some friends and then decided to make the channel public. And then it just literally became, next I'll do tailwheel because that's something I've always wanted to do. And then I had a great way to film that with multiple cameras. And by that point I knew how I wanted to film and see the feet on the pedals and see the control surface moving and really debrief the hell out of that and share it. And it just evolved from that to people inviting me to do different things and travel to their place to see how I just got back. Before this all went down, I had been to Sweden and Mexico, did a couple different international trips to just fly with local people and see what aviation was like in those countries. Other things like flying different types of warbirds or, different types of aerobatics and float training in Alaska. That's one of the things I'm editing now that was shot ages ago. Really, I don't plan as much as I get invited at this point and just kind of try to fit in the invitations to do the different things. And it's really been awesome. And again, it's another problem where I have so many of these awesome invitations. I try to manage them. Yeah. And a lot of times it takes 6 months from someone reaching out before I can even begin to fit it into the schedule. Oh, so it's a good problem, but that's kind of how it's been going. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very, very cool. Have you ever thought about, I know that you keep saying over and over on your channel that, I'm not an expert. I'm always, I'm always learning. I'm always getting better. I repeat, so on. Have you ever thought about taking a flight instructor license? And
I think down the road. I'm just gonna say real quick, thanks to Max Witt for saying, he says I don't make good films, I make amazing films. So I appreciate that in the super chat there. But I think down the road, it would be a logical rating to finally get. Yeah. In the short term, I think I like leveraging the fact that I don't owe it to anybody to be better than I am. So I can afford to show mistakes or whatever that a private pilot would make. And I think there comes a point where you and Mikey were just talking about that, how when you say something on YouTube, people are going to hold you to it. And I like that I'm only doing the best I can. I'm not an expert. And if someone has a better way to do something, I'm more than happy to hear that from them. And frankly, I learn a lot from the comments when people, because I put my stuff out there in a humble way that I'm kind of acknowledging. Typically what I try to do is pre-troll myself. So I figure, what is the hater going to say about this? And I kind of say it. So that the subject of a video might be like, worst landing ever. And then you'll still get people that have to say in the comments, that was the worst landing I've ever seen. It's like, well, that is the subject. But having said that, I still get really good feedback where people will say, here's how you could fix that, or here's what, if I don't fully understand what I did wrong or something. Yeah. So if I become an instructor, then, I can't be that guy.
But that's where you're
exactly
wrong. That's where you're wrong, I think. Because I am a type rating instructor, type rating examiner, and I am very, very honest with the fact that I screw up just like everyone else. That pilots, the day that you forget that the day that you think that you're not making mistakes or that you're immune against mistakes is when you start to become a really dangerous pilot. So, as an instructor, you could still leverage that. You can still use that, saying, right, but you can take it from an instructor point of view, and I'm just pushing you to do this because I
appreciate it, yeah,
and I want to come and have you as my instructor when I take back my single pilot license because
that'd be cool.
So you see, I'm pushing you in the right way.
Okay, well, absolutely, I would love to be able to check people out in tailwheel, or be like, it'd be awesome to be able to check people out in the Harvard at some point. I would love to do the backseat checkout and get to that place. So I think there's no question I will probably head that way. Yeah. I just don't think I'm in a hurry to head that way. I need to still get the commercial license. I don't have that. The next step, the thing I'm lined up to do that I should have been doing right now that's canceled, was my multi IFR. So I do have my multi-engine rating, but VFR only. Yeah. And I have my IFR for single engine instrument rating. So I was going to get the multi IFR in the DA42 with the G1000. That was supposed to be happening this month. So that's obviously canceled. All flight schools around here are shut down. Yeah. So what I'm doing is the groundwork, and you were going to talk about the sim. So that's the sim behind me. I'm just in the process of updating it to the G1000 panel. And I literally was just now trying to find the DA42 for X-Plane 11, which apparently is a challenge. So I just put that on Twitter.
Okay.
I didn't realize like there was one for X-Plane 10, and then they had one for X-Plane 11. They're not selling it now because I don't know. So I might need to change software for the sim, but anyway.
But can you? Is there a possibility to switch the screen
Yeah.
so people can see what you have?
Yeah. So I can turn. Is that good enough, or should I turn the camera around?
No, that's fine. So you can see.
So you see the hole. So you see the hole in it. That's because there used to be an iPad there for the 6-pack. I took that out. I'm giving this panel away actually because it's based on the Garmin 430. Can you see it up in the corner there?
Yeah.
So that's what I did my single IFR in. So it's kind of matching the airplane that I flew. So the muscle memory of the knobs and buttons is right there in the real sim gear.
Excellent.
Garmin 430. So I'm gonna switch this up to G1000 setup for the DA42, which is what I'll use. So I'm just gonna fix I'm looking at the computer where I'm seeing what you're showing, so it's a little bit lagged. I'll try to pan it over more to put it's really centered around the GNS 430 there. That was what I really needed to learn for my flight test, and that really helped me to have the physical unit with the knobs and buttons on it.
Yeah.
So that when I change that up to the G1000, I'll be sort of rocking that setup and just being able to do muscle memory for the whole thing.
You see, you're bringing up.
I framed the wrong side of it.
Yeah, you're bringing up a really interesting point though, because a lot of questions that I get is like, okay, so can you actually use a flight simulator to improve your skills? And I would like to hear your answer to that first.
Mm-hmm. So hand flying, no, I don't think. I mean, hand flying is way harder in a sim.
Yeah.
So that not even. I actually got so frustrated. I have the Logitech yoke on this sim.
Yeah.
It's springy. It's terrible. It's impossible to trim it. You can spend so much time trying to trim it, and then you're like busting your altitude, and suddenly you're like behind where you want to be. So I was super frustrated with the yoke, and I actually used mostly the autopilot, to be honest, because I'm not concerned about in the plane I flew my flight test in. I had no autopilot, so I had to hand fly the whole flight test. But what the sim allowed me to do was get my head in the game for rocking, the avionics, briefing my plates, procedures. So, just dialing in the autopilot where I needed to go and setting the heading bug, which the airplane I flew didn't even have a heading bug, actually. It just put my head in the game, and honestly, hand flying the PA-28 that I was flying, once I had it trimmed up, it was fine. No real challenge at all there. Once I got that locked in, it was really about the scan.
Yeah.
So what I did was I kept my scan going, pretending like I am hand flying. So I wouldn't allow myself to not keep the scan going constantly. As long as you stay on top of that, you're fine. And what's funny is in the actual flight test, I did trip over something in the 430 where I got excited and I V-loped sooner than I should have once I passed the fix to enter a hold. And then I went to change the OBS to make the magenta line match what my outbound course was or my inbound course was going to be. But of course, because I already V-loped it, I couldn't change the OBS. And the magenta line was like not what I wanted. And I spent, I would say, 8 seconds dealing with that. Let my scan get hesitated just enough that I bounced off the upper limit of the allowable altitude. I caught it, so I didn't fail, but I got the worst mark you can get on an exercise without failing, which is a 2 out of 4. And the examiner later said, I'm so frustrated because then after that I had to do real holds for a long time because actual jet traffic came in. So he said, I'm going to get you to hold until I like it, and then I'll tell you to proceed to get the approach clearance. So right about the time he said, okay, we're fine, ATC said, actually, we're going to need you to stay in that hold. So I do 5 more orbits in the hold, hand flying, and they're perfect. If you look at the track log, I've got it on Twitter. It's my pinned tweet because I'm so proud of it. Friggin' track logs were perfect because I was managing my track, but I bounced off that altitude for 5 seconds or whatever it was of delay when I got distracted by the avionics for that one little thing, which I had practiced in the sim. It's super frustrating. I just pressed the button too soon. But anyways, I just made the decision to leave that behind. And I didn't need it because I could track the localizer with the needles. So that's what I was doing anyways. The GPS was backup. So I just said to the examiner, I can probably play with this longer and figure out what I did wrong, but this is a secondary system for what I'm doing right now. I'm not going to waste any time on it. I'm going to track the loc and I'm going to do this hold. And it worked fine. And in the debrief, he said to me, I liked the decision you made there. It was unfortunate that I had to give you the mark I gave you because the holds were great, except for that one instance. But to be honest, I like it because I'll never forget that learning moment of making the decision to abandon something that was distracting me, that wasn't critical. And using the sim for this stuff is a great way to practice all those sorts of things, because you can set up something to fail on you that you maybe wouldn't do in a real plane, and put yourself in the place where you would have to make those decisions. Like, what do I do? What do I revert to? Which backup system do I use? Or, yeah.
I mean, you're making several good points there, which I would like to talk about. But so you can use a sim, but providing that you do it in a professional way. Like I see a lot of people who maybe not using their simulator software, like their X-Plane 11 or whatever, in the way that would actually benefit them. Like you, for example, you don't talk about hand flying because you know that the difference between the aircraft and the simulator is so big that it just does not make any sense. And this is also what I'm trying to tell people, like just because you can land a 737 using your home sim doesn't mean that you can actually land it when you get out online, because it's a completely different animal. This is a game, this is reality. But systems, muscle memory, understanding what you see, understanding the system behind it, providing that you're actually reading up on things and understand, like having a manual maybe of the Garmin or whatever it is that you're using, and you're verifying how it actually looks, that is a huge benefit. And in fact, I was speaking to the head of training in one of the biggest flight schools here in Europe, and he said that he was seeing a lot of difference between people who had been using flight simulators at home in a professional way and people that was coming in and doing flight training without having done that. The people who had been using X-Plane 11 in a way that was semi-professional, maybe speaking with ATC and stuff, they learned much quicker when they got into the aircraft. So
no question. Yeah, putting your head in the game is the key. And if you fixate on trying to think about the controls, because even the rudder pedals and trying to taxi, even in a Cessna, it's hilariously sloppy. Like it's just not at all. But it's nice to know where they are and play with all the feet, do the brakes and whatever else you need, True. But at the end of the day, like a bunch of my instrument training early on, I did in a Redbird, which is much more expensive, but it still has the same problems. The springy controls are not giving good feedback. And I used to, when we broke out of the clouds, I would just go hit the button and say, cool, I don't need to continue. Let's go to the next. Like, I don't even have any interest in continuing this approach and landing. Like, it's just not even at all real to me. We broke out, wherever we want to be. Let's go to the next thing.
Yeah.
And my instructor agreed. He's like, yeah, a lot of people continue and land, but you're right. It's a waste of 2 minutes. Let's just move on. And then even in cruise, my instructor taught me a trick with Redbird, which was engage the autopilot for a quick second, and then it'll trim for you, and then disengage it. And it's like, that's a cheat, but it's not, because in the real plane, you can trim so quickly with feedback. In the sim, oh my God, you chase it, no feedback, and then you're distracted, and that's not real. And that puts you in a place where you just wasted 10 seconds on something that would take 2 seconds in the real plane.
Did you use VATSIM at all?
I was using Pilot Edge, but I know they're kind of the same idea with real ATC, people playing the role of real ATC, and they take it very seriously. So absolutely, that's awesome. So yeah, you get that combined, because then that removes the variable where you could pause the sim.
Yeah.
So if you just treat the sim like you can't pause it and you got to stay with it, then you put ATC out there that's talking to you and they expect you to be where you're going to be and do what you're going to do, and you kind of do feel that real stress, like you can't pause it, So that does put your head in the game in real time.
Yeah, cool. But the other thing that I really wanted to emphasize here, guys, for you who's watching this, and we talk about children of the magenta line. When people are referring to that, they are referring to the younger generation of pilots who are a little bit over-reliant sometimes on automatics. And what you were doing there and what caused the problems for you initially is what they tend to do, which is fixating on a part of the automatics and forgetting to fly the aircraft for that split second while you're sitting there trying to troubleshoot a system that you don't really need right there. And it's very good to hear from someone with your experience that can happen to anyone. And what I really like by your instructor, which is what I would do as well, is that if I would see someone in a flight test in the simulator doing that, sitting in, the 737, their heads down into the FMC CDU, and they sit there and they try to figure out how to fly a holding, and they screw something up, They cannot fix it, and they try to fix it, but the aircraft is, hurtling away in whatever direction it is hurtling away. And what I'm watching then is that first of all I see, can they fix this? Because obviously that's part of what they're being tested on as well. But what I really want to see is someone like, screw this. Where's that needle? That's okay. I've just paused it. I'm going to turn to the outbound heading. I'm going to start the timing manually here. I'm going to fly it, and then I'll figure this out. But at least the aircraft keeps flying, and everything is where it's supposed to be. And that's what he did with you. Because he saw that, all right, is this dude going to now get too fixated on this, starting to bust through something? Well, in that case, it's a fail, because the priorities are not straight. But you didn't. And it's a really good lesson for people out there to hear.
Yeah, it was good. I liked that moment because it was the only two in Canada. We marked the exercises. Each thing is marked 1 out of 4. On the video I did the debrief, I showed that part of the test scoring thing, but 1 is considered a critical error, I think, which means a whole test failed.
Yeah.
2 is considered a major error, but you corrected. And I think we're only allowed 3 2s on the whole test. So if you get 3 2s, doesn't matter if your marks add up to a good score, you still fail.
Yeah.
So I only got the 1 2. So that was good, but that was what I got it on because we're allowed plus minus. It's plus minus 200 feet for the hold.
Yeah.
And I did bounce off 200. I caught it and I said correcting, but I did bounce off the 200.
Yeah.
So, but that will never. Yeah, it was such a great moment because I'll never forget that. You can go down that rabbit hole and you have to decide. I have to abandon what's important here. So I kind of made the joke even at the time, actually. I said to him, like, you got to aviate, navigate, communicate, avionicate. Because I was dealing with the avionics. Like, I didn't need it. Like that the only thing I needed the 430 for was to know where the beacon was. I didn't need to know anything else from it. Because I didn't have an NDB or a ADF in that airplane. It was an NDB that we were doing the hold on. So I was using the GPS for distance. But I had that information. Didn't matter what the track said. Didn't matter what the magenta line said. So that's what I said to him. Was like, I'm just going to use it for the distance. I know where I am. I don't care if this line is stupidly wrong. I'm going to need this GPS to work when we do the RNAV approach later, the different approach after this ILS. But that comes later, and hopefully I don't screw it up then.
Yeah. And
I didn't. I remembered to get it in the right mode from VLOC to GPS mode after I left that ILS approach and flew to a different airport for the RNAV. It all worked fine. So yeah, it was a great moment of just understand your systems, and if you get stuck in a menu and you trip over it, you got to realize time is still moving. The airplane is hurtling through space, and you got to abandon that thing.
Exactly, and this is what this is what we're looking for in a pilot. We're looking for the ability to be able to kind of snap out of something, because we all get caught in these loopholes. We all get into the rabbit hole where you get. This is what caused a lot of accidents, actually, where you've had 2 people looking at something. I mean, the Everglades disaster, where they were
value jet.
Yeah, well, the 3 pilots basically looking at a faulty bulb while the aircraft was just slowly descending into the swamp. It's one of many unfortunate examples where there's been that kind of just staring at something and unable to snap out of it. It's like, okay, what's actually going on here? Let's focus on that first. So, and this, guys, by the way, is why you should be following FlightChops, because there's not a lot of people that would actually share a critical error, not a critical, but an error like that on a YouTube channel.
Oh, I've shared some critical ones, but I get to I train in a lot of types. I get a lot of different ratings or whatever, floats and skis and multi and tailwheel warbird checkouts. I think part of what's interesting about what I've done is because I don't fly a lot of the same thing, I don't get stuck on muscle memory or bad habits. So I'm always checking myself because I can't fall back on any habits because it's so much of it is different.
Yeah.
It's ironic to be able to say the T6 is what I'm most comfortable in right now because that's what I'm flying the most. I would never have thought I would be able to say that. And I don't, just to be clear, I still highly respect the airplane. I just don't physically shake as much as I used to when I realize I'm alone in it. I used to always kind of get this really nervous feeling approaching that airplane because it's a monster, that thing. But the systems in it are so big and rugged and clunky, but I love it. And I'm starting to get really familiar with it. But it's still a case of I don't ever take anything for granted. I always make sure I'm reaching for the gear handle when I think I'm reaching for the gear handle. or flaps specifically, because we raise flaps after landing, and they used to have the flaps and gear handle very close together in the early variants, and they changed it because people would raise the gear when they meant to raise the flaps, and there's no squat switch in that thing. So you can raise the gear on the ground after landing, and it would happen. Yeah. So I still check it. But yeah, it's been a fun ride to share. And I mean, the vulnerability aspect directly led to the further experiences, right? So people would invite me to do things because they would see me sharing the learning. So it was highly worth it, very rewarding to put myself out there. No question that there would be some haters that would, say the mean things, but it's like,
there will always be haters, man.
Yeah, it is what it is. I'm not going to worry about that.
No. Good. Well, anyway, Steve, it's great to have you here. I'm going to let you go because I know that you've been doing quite a lot of live streaming tonight as well. Be safe out there, right? Are you still in kind of house confinement, or are you out?
Yeah, so in Canada, they've set a law now, or at least in this area, and I think Mikey was saying the same thing. It's a big fine if you are seen with anybody you don't live with. But we are allowed to take the dog out into the neighborhood and do things like that. We just have to maintain 6 feet apart, and all the playgrounds and so on have police tape. They're closed off so kids can't touch the same bars. But we are allowed to go to the park if we stay out in the field and just walk the dog or play with the ball or whatever. I don't think it's quite as strict as some countries. Now, should it be? Maybe it should be, because I think I am seeing a lot of people that aren't taking it very seriously. So it's like, are we doing this or not? So we're trying to do it. We're trying to take it seriously. So with that in mind, I haven't been able to go to the hangar to work on the RV-14 that we're building, because a bunch of the guys that are there all the time that live right there and practically live together, but they're probably questionable about the law, what they're doing, because they're still going and they're still working on it. There's only a couple of them, but I can't go hang out with those guys because they're 75-plus-year-old guys. And it's like, if by some chance I am a carrier, I don't want to be that guy. So no, it's tough.
Hopefully we'll get this under control sooner rather than later, but I think it is a matter of people taking it seriously in order for it to actually stop. Otherwise, this will just keep rolling. So I think you're doing the right thing. Anyway, stay healthy, stay safe, and happy Easter to you, Steve. Great to talk to you.
All right, thanks. Happy Easter, everyone there.
Thanks. Bye.
I'll see ya.
There we go. Right, guys. So this is awesome. The fact that I can actually reach out to other great YouTubers doing the same live stream says a little bit about the world that we're living in right now. And don't worry, those of you who've sent in super chat, I will continue to answer them right now. I've been on here for an hour and a half now, which means that I will be running out of voice very soon, but I'll keep going for as long as you guys want me to keep going, because I think that this is awesome. I love doing this. I love that you guys are still here, that there's 1,011 people watching still. So keep hitting me with questions. Right, so we talked about the 737 being on skis, and it's not actually. Do you think the pilot training will be cheaper? We talked about this as well, but yeah, to reiterate that, no, there's nothing that says that it's going to be cheaper, other than the fact that, of course, that the oil price is very low right now, which will go, eventually kind of take down the cost of flying a little bit if it goes on for a long time, and that's going to have an impact. But overall, you can still expect the flight training is going to stay between 50,000 and 120,000 euros or dollars, depending on which school you go to. That's going to continue because the schools are now going to have to recoup some of the lost money that this has caused, and it's causing a lot of lost money. Then whether or not, if it turns out that there's no people actually coming, then they might want to kind of hunker down and try to reduce the cost in order to get people in. But the fact is that you need to charge a certain amount of money for flight training in order for it to be viable. And what you don't want is flight schools who are not viable, because if they start going bankrupt, what they will do is they will take the money that you have paid in, they will go bankrupt, and that money is going to be gone. So you want to make sure that you are paying at least enough to cover the cost and to give a little bit of profits to the school, because if the school is asking for less money than 50,000 euros in most cases, unless there's a very clear reason why they're doing so, it's going to be very hard for them to actually survive long term. So, Dickie, Magic is asking, what are those roundish things on the top of the 737s? Only some have them. I think that we're referring to the antennas for Wi-Fi. So some 737 operators, other operators as well, have retrofitted a special antenna, a satellite antenna, to get internet. So, when you see that you can go on some carriers and you can actually buy internet on board, or actually it's free on some of them. Well, that's it. And they've had to put that disc or that little bump on it, which obviously is going to cost them money as well. And this is probably why you need to pay for it in most cases, because it does impact on the fuel burn when you have that thing on. But there's also the only way so far to get reliable internet while you're flying. So that's what you're seeing. So, Max Witt, he was like saying, giving FlightChops the credit that he has. Like, guys, you have to go and check out his channel. If you haven't already, you should do it. Because if any of you are interested in general aviation and flying warbirds and flying different types and doing like floats and what's the problem with that and skis and whatever, he does these, like, basically, I think that he could take his entire channel and he could sell it to the Discovery Channel as is tomorrow if he wanted to, because it is that high production value. As in, it makes the hair stand up on my arms when I watch some of the stuff that he's creating. So go and check it out. So, Ben Walsh, hi from Ireland, love your videos. My son is no longer scared of flying after watching them with me. Keep up the good work. I don't know if that was from me or for FlightChops, but if it was from me, thank you very much. I do a lot of these live streams and a lot of the videos that I do for people who are afraid of flying, because I think that it is a real problem out there. A third of humanity is actually either scared or nervous about flying. And I intend to do my best to try to help them, because sometimes, especially in the society that we lived in before this disease, flying was an integral part of everyone's life. You wanted to go on vacation somewhere, maybe you have relatives in different parts of Europe or in different parts of the United States. The only real viable way of getting there was to fly. And if you are that afraid of flying, even if you're just nervous and you don't like it, it actually hampers and takes away a lot of life quality. So if I can help a little bit with that through the experience that I have, I will do that. RGB is what is it saying? I don't know exactly what you're referring to, but anyway. So, yeah. Thank you. Can airlines stock up on aviation fuel while it's incredibly cheap and store it in mass for later? No, but what they can do, well, I mean, they could. If they have storage capability, they could buy up a lot of fuel and store it there. But what is more likely that they're going to do is they are going to hedge the fuel now that it's very low. So what you can do is, as a big airline, you can go and you can talk to a aviation fuel provider or an oil provider and say that, listen, this is the current price now. Let's say it's $20. I want to hedge for the next this many barrels, as in this many thousands of tons of aviation fuel at $23. So slightly higher price than this right now. But it's basically like buying an insurance for your fuel price. You're fixing the price on that level, and of course you're then running the risk that the fuel price would drop to $10. You're stuck paying your $23 then. But you're also hedging the fact that it's more likely that it's going to go up to 30, 40, and maybe 50, and up to normal $60 or $70. And then you're sitting there for 3 years paying $23. So it's kind of like you can do the same when you hedge currencies as well. I actually did that during the last crisis when I saw that the Swedish crown was really weak. I hedged euros towards crowns then for a certain amount of month, like a certain amount of euros, and that worked out fine. But you can do that. The main reason that people on airlines are hedging fuel is because they want to know for the next 4 years what are our fuel costs going to be. And even if that turns out to be a little bit higher than it should have been, it's still better to have transparency, because what you don't want is to have $10 or $20 3 months and then $70 for a year, because the difference in prices, then the difference of the amount of money they have to have on stock is so huge that you cannot even wrap your head around it. That it is astronomical sources. So it's much better for them to know that for the next 3 years I'm going to pay this much. I know how many flights I'm going to have. I know how much fuel I'm going to need to buy. This is how my business plan works, right? So that Jeffrey guy, hi sir, thank you for the quality content, and I wanted to let you know that I just became a Patreon. Thank you very much. I hope that more people follow your lead. One question: do you own a general aviation aircraft of your own? No. And in fact, that's what I was talking to Steve about. I would love to be able to go and retake my single pilot license at some point, because at the moment I'm only allowed to fly in multi-pilot aircraft. I haven't flown general aviation for so long that I've actually lost my rating, and I need to retake that. And I'm looking at ways that I could potentially do that. And that's why I wanted Steve to get his instructor license, so I could go and do that with him, or have him convert over to EASA and let him do it here. So Vic1123 was at the museum, saw a DC-9 sim. How could pilots learn all the sims without computers? It's like with everything. You learn. As you work, you learn. Type ratings on an aircraft with just steam gauges, it will take the same 2 months. The systems are largely the same. I think the DC-9 does have a simple computer as well, actually, but it's obviously not big, nice EFI screens. But yeah, it takes a while to get your head around it. But this is why it's so important with good basic training, because without good basic training, you don't learn, like, it's going to be harder for you to jump back into steam gauges. I did all my basic training on these like proper old steam gauges, just clocks basically everywhere. Steve was saying that he did his using Garmin, using what I would expect to be a small GPS unit and steam gauges, but there are people who are doing it completely on glass cockpit now. And of course, it's going to be very hard for someone who's done only glass cockpit in their entire training to then jump in to fly steam gauges afterwards. So that's just me, and I'm just being conservative because I'm an old man and I've done my training 20 years ago, even though I don't feel like that at all. So thank you for great content. Let's see if I take some normal questions here from the normal chat as well. Will Engel, great to have you here. Yet another one of my Patreons. I am really thankful to have you on board, Will. Flying as a captain on a DC-10 back when we had several crashes had many people asking me why I chose to continue to fly the aircraft. I always feel that the carrier who does maintenance on the plane I fly gives me amazing peace of mind knowing it's well maintained. Yeah, Will, you're making a good point there. And that's why when people ask if a 30-year-old or 40-year-old aircraft is safe to fly, I say that as long as it is well maintained and as long as you know how to fly the thing, it is perfectly safe to fly that. It's no issue whatsoever. The problem comes with bad maintenance, and that does not happen. If you look at well-established economies like in the United States, in Canada, in a large part of the world, there are very few places in the world now that doesn't have a proper oversight over their commercial aviation market. The way to find that is if you go out to the blacklist. Like EASA has a blacklist of airlines that they do not let into their airspace because they cannot guarantee that their maintenance and their flight training has been done properly. Those airlines you shouldn't fly with, all right? But all the other airlines that are not blacklisted means that they have proper oversight, they have good aircraft, they have good maintenance, they have good pilots. So that's the thing to remember. So let's see. Swids1. Hi Petra, I can still fly solo in New Zealand, and the only good from COVID is that I could go to Schiphol control and do in the Netherlands, of course, not New Zealand, in Netherlands. And the only good from COVID is that I could go to Schiphol control and do a 360 around the tower. yeah, it is very strange times. Well, make full benefits of that, because that will never ever happen again, hopefully. Because normally Schiphol is very busy. Guys, that's the last super chat question. I hope that I have answered all of them. Let's see. To help. Okay, I have actually missed a few here. I have to check them out. So, what Stine is asking, to help while grounded, in what situation were you the most afraid while flying? This is a question I get almost every live stream, and I always answer them the same, which is I don't really get scared. Normally, my job is to make sure that I don't get into situations where I get scared. So that means that, I have been in situations where I've felt uncomfortable. That normally has to do with suddenly developing huge thunderstorms over a big area, or coming into an area which suddenly fogs up, which wasn't forecasted. So anything that happens that is out of the ordinary that you haven't been able to prepare for, that also includes things like severe technical failures of the aircraft or things like that. But fortunately, because the 737 is such a great aircraft to fly and so well maintained by my airline, it very rarely is more than some small minor technical snags that's being taken up by redundant systems. So yeah, no, very rare that you would feel scared while you're flying, and I'm very grateful of that. So time-lapse addiction, may you explain rudders? Well, rudders, if you refer to flight controls, it's the way that we control the aircraft in both the roll, pitch, and yaw kind of direction. I need to get myself one of those model aircraft, by the way. But I don't know exactly what you want me to explain when it comes to that. There are a lot of great YouTube videos out there that will explain how these different rudders interact with each other during flight. So, guys, before we go, I have the attention of at least 1,000 of you here. I want you to go and download the Mentour Aviation app right now if you haven't already. All right, it's a great news. Just like Mike was saying in the beginning of the live stream, you know, if you want to get access to the news that's happening in the aviation industry, it's very, very effective in doing that. I have some fantastic administrators that are finding all over the globe loads of aviation news. They put them up and they push out a few news every day that it's kind of the major news stories during the day. But all of the news that they can find is going to be there and you can find it. So it's a one-stop shop for your aviation news. You can also become a premium member. That means that you can ask questions during in-app live streams, which I'm planning to do much more of this week. There's going to be at least 2, I promise that. Which is going to be smaller live streams than this. So it means that if you are a premium member in the app, which does cost $5 per month, but you will be the only ones that can ask questions, which means that it's much more likely that you'll be able to ask and get answered your questions inside of the app exclusive live streams. But also, you can get these collections. So there are 360 collections. As you can see, you can kind of move around. You can look what I'm doing when we're doing an engine failure after takeoff or a setup, or if you have one of these 360 glasses, then you will put them on and it will feel just like you're sitting on the jump seat together with me while I'm doing, like I said, setup, engine failure after takeoff, TCAS maneuvers, Cat 3 maneuvers, things like that. So I have a complete playlist that is about 2 hours of me instructing you in different maneuvers in the 737, and that will cost you about $20 to buy. So those are the only things that cost anything inside of the app. The rest is absolutely free, so you don't have to buy anything by downloading the app. Just get the app now, and I'm going to finish this live stream now, and then I'll head over to the chat in the app, which I tend to do just to rewind a little bit. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this. I did try to spice it up a little bit. Next time I might come up with a different way to spice it up, maybe some aviation trivia, me asking questions and you answers or something like that, or I might find some other awesome creators to invite onto the live stream. But for now, take care of yourself. Happy Easter, stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.